for being here today. Thanks to INCIBE for organizing this panel. It's a delight. I'm delighted because, as Jacobo has said, I know the programs of entrepreneurship from INCIBE very well, because ILDEFE and LEONAP, where I'm working, is the Technical Office of Attraction of Investments. We are collaborators. We collaborate with them. I am surrounded by people who I've met many months ago, and it's great for me to see them grow. The right, I have Jorge Marcos from CIMARX, then we have Patricia Díez from Electronic ID, and then Fernando Mateus from Kymatio, and we also have here Mauro Graziosi from SMARTFENSE. I could tell you a lot about these projects, but well, I'm not a technologist and I don't know much about cybersecurity, so I will give the floor to them so that they can make the introduction to their companies, because they are the adequate person to do so. So Jorge, please let us know what CIMARX is and what do you do in terms of cybersecurity. Well, we have a few technical difficulties. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear me properly. I think you can. Well, CIMARX is a small company manufacturing cybersecurity software. We are rare because there's not many of us in Spain who dedicate themselves to create code in cybersecurity, and I think that we have a very innovative solution. We could be included in the management of privileged accounts, but we don't want to have privileged accounts in the network. We know that these type of accounts are a great source of data breaches, where most of the malware gets in, and our solutions try and make users to be more aware, more that they have a peace of mind, and our goal is not to have privileged accounts, and face the challenges of not having them. We apply security at an app level instead of a user level. It's an innovative technology, as I was saying, and it's giving us very good results. Thank you very much, Jorge, for your introduction, and congratulations on that project, which seems very interesting. Patricia, what about electronic ID? Thank you, Victoria. Can you hear me? So we were created to change the world through citizen participation, taking the sovereignty of people that is reflected in the Constitution to the phone, to the mobile device. We wanted to mobile voting, legal mobile voting. We realized that at that time no one understood it. So a year later, in 2014, we presented this technology to banks that were in a process of digitalization, and it was good to them, and they are the ones with the money. So we focused on transferring that technology, that knowledge that we had at the time, and we wanted to offer a very advanced product in electronic IDing of people. Why? Because we wanted to overcome the trust issues and have an online channel, because sometimes it's difficult. So we want to help people not to have to go to an office. So we've been very successful. We have the support of many banks that have a similar process, banks like Santander, CaixaBank, and others. Last year we were 7 in the team, and now we are 30. We expect to grow to have 80 people in the near future. This year we will end the year with more than 3 million turnover. And we were created here in Spain, but we will have branches in 9 countries. We are growing very fast. We have a very ambitious project. We think that it will be able we will be able to manage this, and we want to change the world. I think we will change the world in that aspect in electronic ID. Patricia and Ivan, the CEO of the company, come from León, so for us is a source of great pride to have projects like yours because they represent our land. So Fernando, what's Kymatio? Well, Kymatio is prevention of internal threat of companies, of what companies experience from within. We are spending lots of money in the perimeter, but we forget that we are human and that we fail. So Kymatio wants to transform employees into human firewalls. That's the approach. So how do you go on about this? I identify as a public administration employee, maybe, and I don't see myself as a human firewall. Well, you can be one. Well, I'm very lucky then. Well, what we do is work with the users. We interact with them to determine what are the needs that they have to harden the user. To improve as a professional, not only on your usual activity, but also to acquire skills in cybersecurity, in regulatory aspects. So we determine what every person needs and we apply it to them. So it's customized. Well, this is amazing. And Mauro, SMARTFENSE, you are an Argentinian company which is located now here in León, in our land. You have great experience in Spain and Latin America. Please tell us about SMARTFENSE, please. Can you hear me now? SMARTFENSE was created in Argentina. Is my 5th startup, and it was created from our passion in working in cybersecurity. I faced the issue of trying to raise awareness amongst users. We know that this is a thin layer of defense, and we knew that there was not enough investment, so we created an awareness platform to create safe behavior on the internet, and the goal is not only to generate this behavior but also to measure it. And so we do simulations of hacking attacks to measure the progress of the users, of the people in what we call the digital hygiene. As Fernando said, we also do user hardening with a similar approach. We complement each other, and we are now in Spain, and we're opening new markets. We've been strong in Latin America, but we are now in Spain, and we want to reach other countries. Great, Fernando. I don't know, I think you had a presentation. Maybe you want to follow your script. So I give you the floor. The audience is yours. Well, as I was saying, I'm the CEO of SMARTFENSE, and what we want to do is generate safe habits amongst users. The approach is to see the whys, the reasons. Sometimes we tell people what to do and how to do it, but if you want to really change the habits, you have to target the reason, the why people are doing what they're doing, because then they can consolidate their knowledge. So they have a reinforced habit, so we need to reinforce them to have a good habit. So we've created a training platform for the specific market of Latin America and Spain, because we have different idiosyncrasies. If we want to bring things from other cultures, from the English-speaking countries, maybe it's difficult to do do it with them to make them have these habits. So we had problems in the local markets. The mindset is very different from region to region. For us, it's a challenge to be here in Spain because we have things in common, but there are many things that are different. We thought it would be more similar, but it's not. So the challenge actually is very appealing to us. Indeed, it makes us have a better understanding through the actual product, to have a better understanding of the Spanish mindset. These lead to consolidate ourselves mentally and emotionally in the territory, and also here in León, which is where we are. Thank you very much, Mauro. Well, when I was offered to moderate this panel, I knew I had to sit down with all of you. I know all of you, and I asked myself, I wondered when I involved myself in the INCIBE entrepreneurship programs, I wondered, because many of you have already experienced, you come from different sectors and you've been involved in different professional areas that might not be cybersecurity, but you ended up having an entrepreneurship adventure in cybersecurity. And why this area? Why not other areas of the ICT field? Jorge, why did you choose cybersecurity? Well, it's very simple. I've always worked in cybersecurity. In CIMARX, we come from a financial company. It's a very important company, and we've been always worked with the companies, with the problems that a financial company faces in cybersecurity. There was a time when the problems were too many, and we had the opportunity to get out of that company and create our own company to provide solutions to all those companies that we meet every day that have the same problems that we faced. And it's not an easy task to administrate all the users and administrations of the networks. So for you, it was very clear. You had the know-how, you had detected the problem, you saw the opportunity for a solution that could be valid for the market, and then you launched the project. Yes, we decided to leave the company, which is a big step, and we decided to learn when we had reached a specific age. Well, many of you in these technological sectors and industry, well, we normally think that you are young people in your early 20s, but we have the example of Jorge, the case of Jorge. He is very clear and he went for it. Yes, we did. Well, we want to encourage people of all ages. It's never too late. There are success stories of entrepreneurs with professional maturity, and I'm glad that this happens in cybersecurity as well, because we know it happens in other fields. Well, we need not forget that we have the experience, we have the knowledge of the real problems of that companies faces nowadays. So we have an advantage, we have an edge. It's not only well, here we say that the old people know lots of things because of their experience. So Mauro has mentioned that this is his 5th startup. I don't know if all of them have been in cybersecurity. All of them. Also, you were already in this industry and you decided to do something else in cybersecurity. Well, in fact, this all started when I was young. But it started in my university period. I'm a very curious person, and I was a kiddie. I was someone who said was a hacker and just downloaded ASP.ASP, and you just had to upload that file and put it in a server, and from there I took control of the university server and other stuff, and I didn't have any knowledge at that time. Imagine. And I managed to access a solid server. So I had to choose the path. Do I go down do I join the dark side? Yeah, I had to think about it, really. But no, I decided to say, well, if someone can do this so easily, how can we prevent it? So yeah, 5 startups in cybersecurity, because I realized that it was too easy to do this, so there was something lacking on the other side. So my knowledge was always related to cybersecurity. But well, I started with TSP in IT, but I started with the basics, hardware, software, networks, and then I started progressing, and nowadays I'm in the human layer, because I started with those layers, the technical, and now I'm in between the keyboard and the chair, where you can see that the cybersecurity solutions are progressing, and now you have to work with the human factor. And on the other hand, it depends on the profile of each one. I'm a believer in people. I know that if I'm selling a cybersecurity solution that is focused on habit changing, we have to believe in people, and you have to believe that you can change their habits. So for us, working in a cybersecurity solution that is focused not in the technical side, but on the human side, is a success, because sometimes you get IT people that go for technology solutions because they don't believe in people, which is valid, but I think that it has to be complemented with the strengthening of the user. I would just like to add that I fully agree with Mauro, because around 60% of cybersecurity incidents involve one person. It doesn't have to be someone who wants to harm the company, because sometimes there are mistakes, there's stress situations, there is a lack of training. So companies need to be aware that they need to help employees to deal with situations. That the employees need help, because the digital world puts them facing problems that didn't exist before, like phishing. So employees are facing challenges that didn't exist before. That's why you also work on that field in the future. Yes, we also work in cybersecurity. For instance, I've been working in BBVA and Liberbank. I've been working with them in the banking sector, and we've identified that there is a need, that there is an obstacle, which is the human aspect is good, that we have perimeter protection and other technical things. But if a person gets angry, takes a picture of the pay slips and puts it online, there's nothing we can do. So we have to work on that. And Patricia, what about you? In our case, it's related to trust and cybersecurity. We need to guarantee that the vote is not rejected. So starting from this, electronic identification got involved with regulation, with the recent ML5, the regulation for the prevention of terrorism financing, where you have to guarantee that a person is who they say they are. So we have to work on trust in this process. That's brilliant. Thank you very much for offering your point of view. So you decided to be entrepreneurs in cybersecurity. You were clear about the issues, and you knew how to solve them and how to offer it to the market. So you started with the project of your business, and now startups, when they are starting out, what they do is to look for help and support in business incubators and business accelerator centers. INCIBE has 2 support programs that we have been mentioning in these sessions, which are Cyberemprende and Cybersecurity Ventures. Why did you decide to one of the INCIBE programs, and why did you rejected other projects that were at hand? If you allow me, I will start by asking Patricia, because electronic ID was one of the winners of one of the calls from Cyberemprende. Cyberemprende, if you don't know, it's an incubation program of projects from INCIBE that wants to get an idea, and when the project is done, then the result is a company. So why did you decide to participate in Cyberemprende? Well, we were indeed one of the winners of Cybercamp in 2015, and for us it gave us trust, because it's a program that is supported by a public institution, and we were also glad about the experience that the program gives you. And one of the reasons we chose it as well is the possibilities of all the workshops. I remember we spent 3 days in a room just to get the pitch, to be able to explain the project in 2 minutes. We thought it was brilliant. Before coming in, we really didn't know what a startup was, because we know that multinationals have different timings and have nothing to do with startups. So when you set up a startup, everything is new. You have to face risks, and they tell you that you have to be made of a different paste, and it is true. Well, you wake up every day and think that, I have a project that is mine, I'm trying to change the world, and it's tough. So having a program that supports you, in our case, because we were one of the winners, it was good for our reputation. We became known, and then with the label of Cybercamp, we managed to get our first customers. It doesn't mean that it was just because of that, but it really helps. Great. So for us, the prestige of having the support or being backed by an institution like INCIBE, which is focused on cybersecurity, gives your potential partners and customers that you are serious about it. And this was one of the reasons why you wanted to participate in the program. Yes, and also the visibility, because at that time we were just starting out. We went to different banks and no one knew us. So if you get introduced by the INCIBE, even though no one knows you and they don't know what your project is about, then gives you an important push. We really recommend it. In the case of the other 3 companies, well, you've participated in this next program, the Accelerate program, which is an international one, Cybersecurity Ventures. And well, I'm very interested about Mauro's opinion. There's many accelerators in Argentina. So why did you come to Spain to participate in INCIBE? Why did you choose INCIBE in Spain? Well, this reminds me of last year's at this moment. Last year, when we were here, we didn't know if we would stay in Spain for more than 1 week, and it was a difficult story. It was tough for us. I was explaining it before. Well, I read a tweet from INCIBE, and I just knew I had to be there. I didn't share the tweet with anyone. I read all the terms and conditions. I memorized them. I didn't tell anyone. There was a second stage where I told my wife, and I told her, we have to go. This is specific for cybersecurity. We don't have that in Argentina. INCIBE has been our beacon for many years. Well, we have. There was no way we could say no to this. So then I had to convince my partners, and when they were convinced, I got unconvinced, because it was a huge leap. It was a quantum leap coming here to Spain, and we this last minute we made an excuse that we didn't have money, because we were a very young company. So a customer comes and if we have a big customer told us to go because they told us to come here. They actually obliged us to come here. They gave us the money. They gave us a contract for 3 years. So that's the main reason. It was an acceleration program. We've already been in an incubation program. So this was a long-term specific program with mentors, and it was very good for the needs that we had at that time. So we really made the most of it. And yeah, we made the mentors suffer because we didn't miss a minute of it. So also, as Patricia was saying, the reason of the having INCIBE to back you, the support, we were thinking not only to go through every stage, but when we were reaching the end, we saw that it was really a prize. It was a contest. There was competence, and it brought the best of us, and this actually made us put all the efforts in, and the people in Latin America were already following and supporting us, and we were basically representing Latin America, people from Colombia, from Brazil, from Mexico. And then in the final stage, the support from INCIBE was practically automatic in terms of sales, because we have the price. Those companies that were in doubt, they confirmed their contract. We've trebled our sales from the moment we received the prize, and we hope to keep on moving on the same track. And Patricia was saying it doesn't have to do with sales for the company. This validation is good sometimes, negotiating with a partner or with a client. There is an interest where you even sometimes doubt your product or your business model, but having the backing of INCIBE and the people who were in the acceleration program was not just the product but also the company. So this helped us to keep our chins up, and it was great, brilliant. Mauro didn't mention it, but I think it's the time. His project won the latest call for cybersecurity ventures, so all that personal and professional sacrifice, all those risks he assumed, they were worth it. Now, please allow me to talk to Jorge. He's a success story, but it's a bit different. He's been linked to cybersecurity ventures, but he was just second best. He didn't manage to get there, but he has a success story, and I wanted to highlight this. We met in Valladolid a few months ago. You told us about what was happening with CIMART. Please tell us about you chose cybersecurity ventures, and then we can talk about your experience.
Well, in our case, getting into cybersecurity ventures was something that we had to do, because entrepreneurship in cybersecurity, it was all within INCIBE. And especially when you get out of a company with the dynamic of a private company, and you're all the time working with cybersecurity incidents, and then you decide to start your own company to improve the security of companies, then you have to have in mind that you start in a very unexplored field, especially in certain areas. So we decided to look for what would be our reference, our beacon, and of course we had to do it. So we applied to the security ventures of last year, and it's true we didn't get in, but what I have to say is that INCIBE hasn't forgotten about us. We liked each other very much, and just for the fact of participating and for being there as in the first line, and the visibility that we acquired from that, it's been really helpful for us. And so we have had some success out of it, even though we haven't won. So at the end of the panel, I will go back to this and I'll get some conclusion out of this. But Fernando, you're not going to get away from here. So explain us why. So in our case, we were very close to the scientific community, to the academia, and what we wanted was a very fast way to refute from a very early stage the focus that we had, or to validate it. So how do you change a very innovative idea? So you need an actor that can move a lot of elements around that idea. You need to validate your idea towards some people and some market elements that have an interesting point of view. You have the technology validation, so the market can accept this. You can do it as long as these projects can be financed somehow. So how a startup with 4 or 5 people, how can they access the investors and the risk funds and capital funds? So it seems very difficult, but through the INCIBE, it can be done, and now you have very many doors opened that a few years ago we didn't have. So now it only takes a few months to get it. So as Patricia mentioned, you used to spend many days within a room just to get this, but now it all has changed very much. Great. You have mentioned, and I'm going to link this to with the next question. You have mentioned the amount of time that you spend in the acceleration process. How did you live this? What was your experience? What would you say after those weeks and days in the acceleration process? What did you get out of this? Did you see some difference between the before and the after? Well, since now there are so many people doing triathlons and Ironman and things like that, and people ask, how do you like to do this? Well, you suffer so much that when you finish this, you are strengthened. You feel better. So yes, it's a lot of work. It's exhausting, but we actually did things that we had never thought before. One of our best professionals in the blockchains in the vast country gave us some online training with him, and we didn't even think about that, and we got so many things out of this, and from so many points of view, marketing, financing, very interesting actually. So your experience was quite positive, and because I know that you suffered, but would you repeat? Oh yes, of course, no doubt about it. As long as there's success, I mean, you have to see in which phase every project is, and then define what is success. Because Mauro came with a lot of strength. We came out of college and the university, and so for each of us, success is a different thing. So for us, the success was just being in the final phase of all the projects that were presented, and having access to the technology consultants that teach you how to do things right, the investors, the organizing companies, not only the companies that can be your partners, but entities such as the defense ministry or the economy ministry. So that is very difficult for a startup, and you can do it from here. So Mauro, when Fernando was speaking, your face was quite well. Right, I wouldn't repeat that ever again. I mean, yes, it's a triathlon, but we were injured. I had some allergies to food, and my throat was closed. I couldn't speak. I had some injuries in my back, and I still have some wounds and some sequels of this. So if I have to start an accelerator program at this moment, I would run away, because I wouldn't do it right now. Perhaps in another moment, and yes, with some other people from Argentina. But it was a huge pressure, and at the very end, luckily we had a good companionship, and some of them were all together, but I was alone with the people from Argentina. They knew what I was doing, but I was all alone in the scenery. And perhaps I would repeat it at some other moment, but not at this moment. It was exhausting and very demanding, and because I thought it was going to be more of a cooperative thing, and it was a little bit, but actually the competency took us to be very accelerated all the time. So actually after that, I needed a few months to de-accelerate and to reach a normal level of working flow, considering that we come from a startup, and here we always go fast and accelerated, but the acceleration program was actually extremely fast, and we took a lot of things out of it. I got many things out of it. It has a lot of value, but we auto-imposed a lot of things, and it was exhausting. I know that also all of you that were in that project were very demanding with yourselves, and I know that made it very hard. But I want you to know that the one that thought about this program, I think he was a fan of the Fame TV series. I don't know if you remember that, but we have that sentence that, fame is something that is very difficult and you're going to pay with your sweat. So I think that the creator of the program in INCIBE just remembered the sentence over and over, and that's what you had to do. But I think this also gives an idea of what the program is. It's not just what you see, but it is also for all of you there to be successful. So in your case, Patricia, how did you leave the process? Well, as you mentioned, Victoria, it was a very hard process, and 3 days within a room, and you can think it's impossible how you can spend so much time to get a pitch of 2 minutes, but it was really, really difficult. And currently that pitch is the one that you're using all the time. We use it in the marketing presentations, and when you need to request some financing, they are requesting you this pitch. When you find someone, and yesterday, the first thing we did when someone asked us about our company, we just presented the pitch in 2 minutes. So I definitely would recommend the experience, because besides the experience, you acquire trust in yourself. You know what a startup is. You know how to deal with time. And as you mentioned before, I also wanted to mention that depending on which phase you are in, you can start from the very beginning or develop. So, for example, there was a program in Menorca which was a de-accelerating program. So you just spend 2 days at the beach, swimming, and things like that. So it's just for you to stop and think and forget about your routine and what is important. So I think that every phase in the startup requires a need and a concrete program, yes, for its program. So, as Patricia said, with the de-acceleration program, I propose Leon to be done, because in the gastronomy capital of Spain, you can de-accelerate anything, especially with cabbage before. So, and for you, Ramon, what about? Did you reflect on this? Well, for us, it was very hard to prepare all the documentation that it is required to get in the event. It's not only 3 days. For us, I think it was for us like 3 weeks, seeing what you are going to include, what not. This is wrong, this is good. You know that you're going to be checked out in every single detail. So for us, it was stopping in a precise moment and just dedicate our time exclusively to the program, and then after the pitch, just return to the previous routine. Otherwise, it is impossible with all the documentation that we have to give, and which is actually quite valuable, and in the end, you're going to use it for anything. When you are going to see a customer, the first thing that you take out is all the presentation and everything. So for us, it was quite useful, but it was tough. Great. Let me ask you one question, because it's something that came out. Patricia also mentioned it. There are startups and projects that are at different phases. Fernando has mentioned these too. And one of the things, the good things, especially in security ventures, is that you are picked individually. They analyzed your programs, your progress, and then they established some landmarks customized for you. I've seen quite an incredible change from the beginning to the end of the program. And since you are here representing some successful cases, just explain us your personal and individual perspective, and how was your evolution from the very beginning to the end of the acceleration program? In which point was the company at the beginning and how it was at the end? Well, Fernando, you go first. So remember that part of the process is oriented to landmarks. So you are going to have a mentor that is going to give you some landmarks, and it's going to be escorting you all the time. And you don't know what those landmarks are going to be. And so you have to do this and that, because next week you're going to have to tell this to the experts of Indra, Telefonica, or the Defense Ministry, for example. So you have very little time to dream where you can reach. So in our case, we had an academic idea. We started with a product. We had a business plan, a focus, and our visits to different customers. And so we had the whole workflow for us, and it was an incredible change for us. And Mauro, for you, what do you think? How did SMARTFENSE started here, and how did they finish? Well, actually, we can say that we had two acceleration processes at the same time. Perhaps that is why I was so exhausted at the end. So what happened is that we wanted to take leverage of the opportunity to land in the Spanish market. So parallelly, in a parallel way, we used the channels to land here in Spain. So what I have to say, sometimes it's a bit confused with the program and what we actually happened. So basically, transversally, everything got mixed. And what I mean is that first, we got a self-recognizing regarding certain areas, especially in some landscapes, especially in the commercial area, in the marketing area. Something that lead to changes in our processes, in our structure, in our documentation, but especially to recognize in which phase we were at and how it affected us. And sometimes this was a negative effect, because in 1 year or in 1 year and a half, the CEO of the company went to another country, and it seemed it was going to be easy, but it was not. It was quite hard. Being away and keep the motivation high was very difficult. So one of the things that we saw is the importance of working and depersonalized or making more independence to the team so they can work without the CEO being present. And that was a self-recognition thing for us. At the end of the program, what we found was a company, and because we won, we were a company with a recognized recognition in the market within 2 years. For us, it would have been impossible at this moment. We were a company that had a product. We were starting with our own processes, and we ended up being a company placed in the Spanish market. And because of being in touch with INCIBE, everybody knew us, and we had some impact in the Latin American market. But at the same time, we got some relaxing benefits. So for us, it was very difficult to keep that level, but at the same time, we were quite relaxed because we knew that we were going the right way. Well, I think it's very important what you have pointed out, that it's not a negative thing. So I'm going to change it towards the positive focus. It's not that the CEO leaving was something negative. It's just that it allowed you to identify the ability that you managed to transform and not depend on the CEO to develop the company. That was actually the biggest challenge when I went back to Argentina. It was preparing the team again, so to work without the CEO. And now the company is working there as if I were there. So, so for us, it was also a process of de-acceleration. So I invite you to move away from your own countries to see how you can manage in a situation like this. And Patricia, for you, well, in our case, as Jorge mentioned, when you start with a company, with a startup, you are not many people, and it's difficult to have everything going on with some few people. So when you start with an idea, your end result is totally different, and you have a defined project. And in our case, when we finished with the Cybercamp seal, we got our first customers. So for us, it was quite positive. So for you, from an idea, you went directly through a business. Yes, exactly. In this world, what we say is that in innovation and startups, ideas are useless. What really is useful is the business. So you started, you went to be a company, and that was easier for you, definitely, with all the workshops and the INCIBE support, and being so focused on how to get financing, how to do the marketing, the pitch, and everything. It was a pool of tasks that without this, it would have taken us three times more time. And for you, for you, you didn't get into the acceleration program, but ever since I saw you in Madrid, all the way to the pitch that you did here last year, I saw an evolution and a maturity process in your speech. Actually, for us, was like something very, very cold. It was very hard getting in touch with the INCIBE, because we were coming out of our mother's breast, for saying it in a certain way, without any economical problems, and suddenly you get crazy, and then you say that you're leaving everything and you're going to start something new, and you decide to put everything aside and dedicate yourself fully to your new product. And you think that the INCIBE is going to require you to show you all the wonderful things that you have. And then you realize that what you're lacking is the company. You have a very good product, you have a very good idea, but you don't have the company behind. So just the fact that you have to fulfill so many forms then you realize that once your product is evolving, you have to create your company at the same time. You have to become more of a businessman and forget about the technicalities and things like that. Which is what we actually like. So, because if you have a very good idea without a business project behind, you are not going to get anywhere. And even though we didn't get into the acceleration program, it seems that lucky for us, we ended up constructing what we believe now it is a consolidated company with its customers and everything. So at the beginning it was a bit tough, but now we're quite happy with it. So I'm going to ask you something, if you allow me to. I'm a curious person, and after listening to you and talking with different startups and colleagues these days, and after seeing different projects in the León City Hall, there's something that I'm very curious about, and I would like to know your personal opinion. I start from the basis that all responses can be correct, and these are very personal, and it's like a cycle here. So the acceleration project or Cybercamp or Cyber Emprende are focused for you to finish the acceleration program with a pitch for the investors. But would you rather have investment or customers? Jorge, what would you like to have? Actually, both things. I want money wherever it comes from. If you don't get money, the company doesn't evolve. So in our case, however, it's a bit particular because we decided to create the company when we already had the product, and we had a product that was quite viable to get into the market. Actually, we had some early adopters which were testing our products. So that is when we decided to create the company. So on one side, it was a mistake from us because we couldn't access starting programs that incubate your idea and help you to put that idea into place. But on the other hand, we already had the product created, so the investors were not so interested in us because they couldn't get many things from us. So we had some issues there, but in the end we managed to reach a balance in this aspect, and currently we are in the point in which we should be. And for us, it is more interesting that the money comes from the customers than from the investment, because if it comes from the customers, we are getting the information that we are doing it right, that our product is working and that our effort and our work is correct. The other way is good too, but usually the investor is usually a shark, and the only thing that they want is to recover their investment as soon as possible. So, and the more they get, the better. Unfortunately, the investment rounds that we went through usually were capital risk, and they always want to economically participate on the company. And what we were interested more on was to have a company that would help us to expand to customers and to move forward, to get away and to push the company forward. So my response, for me, I'd rather have the money coming from the customer. However, I'm not going to reject any investment. Yes, of course, because many investors are actually requiring a minimum amount of sales, some metrics, some attraction. So you never know what to do, if just go for the investor or go for the customer. That is my doubt. Actually, from the INCIBE, we are in touch with international accelerators so that you can access their acceleration program. Not only basic programs, but also acceleration programs that are adequate to get you into a biggest company with bill invoices. So, Mauro, what do you think? Definitely sales. Actually, for us, the acceleration programs was very useful for us to contact investors. But also, perhaps here, the investors here are not so sophisticated as from other European countries. So, but here in Spain, they are much more sophisticated and mature than in Latin America. And comparing between investors from both sides, this has helped us a lot. But again, I would prefer the sales because it gives you the power of negotiating in volume, and it also affects your growth graphic. This graphic allows us to have a better assessment, but also to work in different points within the timesheet that will help us in this. And also, we are very austere company, and we want to survive without this financial help. And we assess it, we value it, the investment. It's a company that has been created to be invested on, but if I have to choose, I would rather choose the sales because it positions us better. For you, for me, it would be customers also. But if I can choose, I would choose everything: customers, investors, and everything. Because there are some moments where you want to grow, but still your sales are not strong enough, and investors here can participate in a positive manner. And then your customers, they can be customers and partners at the same time. Sometimes the line is very blurred. So I would choose customers, but if it can be everything, better. Patricia, and you, I would choose also as Fernando everything. But if I have to choose one, I would go directly for the money. In our case, our project, we need very advanced technology and we need financing for this. In our case, the CEO of the company tried to get some money for 8 months, and until he didn't leave his work aside, he didn't get it, because it was a serious project. Once he left his project, he got the first 600,000 euros. And then we got financing of 1 million euros without any customers. And with this financial round, of 1 million euros. It took us a huge effort during 6 months with many meetings per day. So for us, financing is a very important thing, but I guess it's actually the best thing is a balance between two things. Well, I guess that depending on the project, you can have some different options. And now, very rapidly, please give us some advices for those who are thinking about presenting the projects to INCIBE. Jorge, well, for me, is don't think about it. Don't even think about it. So request it from now and just do all you have to do to get here from the very first minute. But one advice that I can give is that the project must be enthusiastic by their own project. They must be accelerated by their own project. You have to be happy with it. You have to believe in your product, and you have to have a very good product that is innovative. And in cybersecurity, innovation in cybersecurity is quite difficult. But if it's innovative, you just don't stop. Don't wait. Patricia. Yes, I would tell them to come with a very clear idea and very open-minded, because here you have to rethink many other things, and you have to absorb everything. Very good advice. And Fernando, what would you say for those who are doubting if presenting themselves or not? I'm not sure if. Well, the dynamic of this is that if your idea is not very clear, or if you are not very interested in doing this, you're going to be out. So everybody that comes here are very much into this, and they have very clear and good ideas. So if you're not very interested, you're not going to be able to make it. But if you are interested, it's a wonderful place to do things that you would have never thought about, and to do the things that you usually do. And Mauro, let's call those international projects that are thinking, how am I going to go to Spain? Here we have a successful case of people that came from abroad. So tell us something about this. Well, yes, definitely. I think we have to double those that come from Latin America, because definitely it's not the same going through an acceleration program in Latin America than doing it here in Spain when we're talking about cybersecurity, where INCIBE is the beacon for these topics. So they have to go through what I went through. Once you say it, you realize that you have to come. So I think I would tell them just to realize what is their phase in the company, incubation or acceleration. If they still have doubts with what they are doing, I would go for incubation. But if they already have a product, and here you have to be very humble and realize where your problems are in the company and not in the product, then I would go to an acceleration program, because perhaps here they're both focused in different things. But once you realize that, there's no doubt about it. You have to come. You have to present a product and with a company that you're passionate about. But especially for Latin American people, if you're going to choose a program, just make the effort to come here. Great. Well, if you allow me, I'm going to close the panel just thanking these 4 successful cases. And my conclusion is that if you're in the cybersecurity sector, either with an idea or with a company that has some experience in the market, that you have to request these projects. Your doors are going to be opened. You're going to be helped. Here they help the entrepreneur, and even though it's very tough, it's a process that it's worth it. So we cheer all of you just to be aware of the callings, and please do not doubt on fulfilling the application. And because we have very little time, then you're just going to ask them any questions outside of here. And as far as it concerns me, I'll close the panel. Thank you very much.